Sunday morning arrived at Fort Harrison with the kind of silence that felt wrong. The sky hung pale gray over the family housing complex in West Texas, the air still and heavy, like it was waiting for something to break. Lawns stretched in perfect squares. American flags drooped on porches. Somewhere a sprinkler ticked rhythmically against concrete. Catherine Brennan sat in her usual spot on the front porch, wrapped in a faded plaid bathrobe that had belonged to her husband. She was 79 years old. Her hair was silver cut short and practical. Reading glasses perched on her nose. In her hands, a mug of Earl Grey tea still steaming. On her lap, the Sunday crossword puzzle half finished. She looked like every other widow on the block. Nobody knew who she was. The houses around hers were occupied by young military families, captains and majors with small children. They nodded politely when they saw her. Sometimes they offered to mow her lawn. She always said no. She liked the quiet. She liked being left alone. 7 years ago, her husband Thomas had died in this house. Lung cancer. Agent Orange from a war most people had forgotten. For 7 years, Kit had lived in the spaces between his memory and her silence. She woke at 0500, made tea, read the paper, solved puzzles, went to bed at 2100. The Winchester Model 52 rifle hadn't been touched in 14 years. It hung on the wall inside above the fireplace next to Thomas's photograph. A beautiful weapon, walnut stock rubbed to a deep shine, long heavy barrel, iron aperture sights, no scope, no computer, no battery, just steel and wood, and the weight of everything she used to be. She took a sip of tea. The first drone appeared at 0815. It came fast over the roofline of the community center, a black shape against gray sky. Not large, maybe 2 feet across. 4 rotors spinning with that angry hornet whine that civilian drones make. It banked hard left, dropped to roof level, and began moving in a pattern. Not random. Tactical. Kit lowered her newspaper. Her eyes tracked the movement without moving her head. The drone swept the street in a grid, pausing at certain windows, hovering, moving on. It was searching for something. 2 more drones appeared 30 seconds later. They came from different directions, forming a loose triangle formation above the housing complex. All 3 moved with the same deliberate pattern. Window to window, house to house, scanning. Kit set down her tea. Across the street, a door slammed. Captain Sloan Whitmore stepped onto her porch in running gear, ponytail swinging. 35 years old, infantry officer, fit and fast, and used to being the smartest person in every room. She squinted up at the drones. What the hell? Behind her, Sergeant Dalton Webb appeared. 28, sniper, lean and wired like a greyhound. He had binoculars in his hands before Kit could blink. Military grade, Webb said. Those aren't toys. Whitmore pulled out her phone. 30 seconds later, sirens. Base security rolled up in 2 Humvees, doors flying open before the vehicles stopped moving. MPS poured out. Radios crackled. Within 2 minutes, a perimeter formed. Within 5 minutes, the decision was made. Shoot them down. Kit watched from her porch as 3 shooters arrived in a tactical vehicle. They moved fast, professionals setting up positions on the community park lawn. Tripods, rifles, the works. XM2010 enhanced sniper rifles. She recognized them from the profile. $64,000 each. Ballistic computers, thermal scopes, rangefinders, wind meters, every piece of technology you could mount on a weapon. The drones continued their search pattern, unconcerned. Target acquisition, one of the shooters called out. Male voice, young, confident. Kit saw the rifle barrel track one of the drones. Smooth follow. Professional technique. The shot cracked across the housing complex like a thunderclap. The bullet hit nothing but air. The drone jinked left at the exact moment the trigger was squeezed, accelerating so fast it seemed to teleport. It rose vertically, 50 feet, hung there for half a second, then dove back down, mocking. Tracking software can't lock another shooter. Frustration bleeding through the tactical calm. Movement pattern is completely erratic. Kit took another sip of tea. She'd seen this before. 5 more shots, 5 more misses. The bullets buried themselves in dirt berms or sailed harmlessly into the empty woods beyond the perimeter. The drones danced between them like they could see the future. Captain Whitmore climbed into the back of the tactical vehicle. Kit could see her on the radio, calling someone, asking for guidance. The shooters kept firing, kept missing. 12 shots total, 12 failures. The drones were toying with them. Kit recognized the pattern now. It wasn't random at all. It was a very specific type of evasion protocol, one she'd taught to hundreds of students over 4 decades. The kind of movement designed to defeat electronic targeting systems. Accelerate when the scope locks. Stop when it predicts. Move in 3 dimensions instead of 2. The young shooters were trying to calculate mathematics on something that couldn't be calculated. They were aiming at where the drone was, not where it was going to be. Whitmore jumped down from the vehicle and stormed toward the shooters. Even from 50 yards away, Kit could see the tension in her shoulders. This was her base, her command, and she was failing in public. Stop chasing it, Whitmore's voice carried across the lawn. Anticipate the vector. You're supposed to be the best shots in this division. Hit the damn thing. The lead shooter adjusted his position, exhaled, squeezed. The drone dropped 6 feet the instant the trigger broke. Another miss. Kit set her newspaper aside and stood up. Her knees protested. Arthritis, 79 years of gravity taking its toll. She steadied herself on the porch railing and watched. One of the drones broke formation. It flew directly toward her house. Slow, deliberate. It stopped 15 feet from her porch, hovering at eye level. The camera lens rotated, focusing on her face. Scanning. Kit stood absolutely still. She could see her own reflection in the dark glass of the lens. The drone knew. It knew exactly who she was. After 10 seconds, it pivoted and rejoined the others. The message was clear. This wasn't surveillance. This was personal. And Kit was part of it. She turned and walked into her house. Whitmore noticed the movement. "Ma'am?" She jogged toward Kit's porch, hand up in a halt gesture. "Ma'am, I need you to stay inside. This is an active tactical situation." "For your safety," Kit pushed open her screen door. "I'm on my property, Captain," she said. Her voice was quiet, measured, the kind of calm that comes from 4 decades of telling people things they don't want to hear. "And you're making a hell of a racket. You want to catch those things or just scare them to death with noise?" Whitmore's jaw tightened. She climbed the 3 steps to Kit's porch fence, close enough that Kit could see the sweat on her temples, the tactical earpiece, the Glock on her hip. "Ma'am, those are hostile surveillance drones. They're maneuvering at high speeds in restricted airspace. This is a Class 4 aerial threat. I need you inside before Class 4 threat." Kit looked past Whitmore at the drones. They were circling now, moving in tighter patterns. "They look like toys from a hobby shop." "These are not toys." "No," Kit said. "They're not. And you're missing because you're aiming at where they are, not where they're going to be. You're trying to calculate math on a bird. You don't use math on birds, Captain. You use flow." Whitmore stared at her, the kind of look young officers give old civilians who don't understand how the modern military works. "Ma'am, with respect, these rifles have ballistic computers that cost more than most cars. If they can't hit a target moving that fast, it can't be hit. Not until it lands. Now please," Kit sighed. She was tired of being invisible. She was tired of pretending she'd forgotten. She turned and walked into her house. Whitmore watched her go, satisfied she'd won the argument. The screen door swung shut. Kit moved through the living room, past the photographs on the wall. Thomas in his dress blues, their wedding day 1974. His memorial service flag folded into a perfect triangle. She stopped in front of the fireplace. The Winchester hung there on 2 brass hooks, exactly where Thomas had placed it 30 years ago. Dust on the barrel. The wood stock still gleamed even after all this time. Kit reached up. Her hands shook. They always shook now. Nerve damage and age and the weight of things she'd spent 7 years trying to forget. Her fingers closed around the walnut grip. The rifle came down heavy, heavier than she remembered. 9 pounds of precisely machined steel and hand-fitted wood. She worked the bolt. Smooth. Perfect. Thomas had maintained this rifle until the week he died. She opened the small drawer in the mantel and found the box of ammunition. Winchester .22 long rifle cartridges. Standard velocity. Nothing special. She loaded 1 round into the chamber. The screen door opened again. Kit stepped onto the porch. She wasn't holding tea anymore. Whitmore spun around. Her hand went to her sidearm on instinct. "Ma'am, drop the weapon." "What do you think you're—" "Saving my eardrums," Kit said. She didn't point the rifle at anyone. She walked to the edge of her porch, leaning against the wooden support post. Her eyes went to the sky. The drones were hovering about 150 yards out, moving in that same maddening dance pattern. "Ma'am, put that down." Whitmore's voice had shifted. "Professional threat assessment. That's a rimfire rifle. You can't hit a moving target at that range with iron sights. You're going to cause collateral damage. You're interfering with a military operation." "I can have you detained," Kit ignored her. She worked the bolt, sliding the tiny cartridge into the chamber. Click-clack. The sound was mechanical, precise. She brought the rifle to her shoulder. Her posture changed instantly. The shuffling old woman in the bathrobe disappeared, her back straightened, her head locked into position, cheek welding to the stock. Her breathing slowed. The shaking in her hands stopped, completely. She looked like a photograph from another era. Black and white, sharp lines, no compromise. One of the drones suddenly accelerated, moving left to right across the skyline at full speed, maybe 80 miles per hour, too fast for the heavy sniper rifles to track smoothly. "Target traversing too fast," Webb shouted from his position. "Can't lead it." Kit didn't track the drone. She swung the rifle barrel ahead of it, moving the muzzle faster than the target. She wasn't looking at the drone. She was looking at empty air 30 yards in front of the plastic machine. She was visualizing the intersection of two lines in space, trajectory and time. "Don't shoot," Whitmore yelled, lunging forward. Crack! The sound of the .22 was sharp and dry, a pop compared to the thunder of the military rifles. For a split second, nothing happened. The drone kept flying. Whitmore opened her mouth to scream at the old woman for her recklessness. Then the drone shuddered. A puff of plastic debris exploded from its center. One of the rotor arms sheared off completely, severed by a bullet the size of a pea. The drone spun violently out of control, tumbling from the sky like a rock. It smashed into the pavement with a satisfying crunch of electronics and broken carbon fiber. Silence dropped over the housing complex. The whine of the drone was gone. The other two drones stopped moving, hovering as if in shock. Every person on the lawn stood frozen. The military shooters lowered their rifles, slowly staring at the wreckage in the street. Webb looked at his $64,000 scope, then at the pile of junk on the asphalt, then at the old woman on the porch. Did she just— He couldn't finish the sentence. Kit calmly opened the bolt of her Winchester. The spent brass casing ejected, arcing through the air. She caught it in her palm with practiced ease and dropped it into her bathrobe pocket. She leaned the rifle against the porch railing and picked up her tea. It had gone cold. "You were aiming at the drone, Captain," Kit said, not looking at Whitmore. "Beginner mistake. Target that small, moving that fast, it's just a mechanical duck. You have to swing through, you have to feel the speed. You rely too much on the red box to tell you when to shoot. By the time the computer says fire, the bird's already gone." Whitmore stood at the base of the porch steps. Her face had gone pale. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Who are you?" she whispered. Before Kit could answer, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, flanked by two MP vehicles. A man stepped out, 84 years old but moving like he was 60. Barrel chest, white hair cropped military short. 3 stars on his collar, even though he'd been retired for a decade. Colonel Harrison Hawk Reeves. He saw him. He saw the crashed drone, saw the stunned shooters, saw Kit standing on her porch with the Winchester. His weathered face broke into the first genuine smile Kit had seen in 7 years. "Well, I'll be damned," Hawk said, walking up the lawn. "I heard shots being missed for 20 minutes and thought Kit's going to lose her temper soon." Kit allowed herself the smallest smile. "Your people need to keep the noise down, Hawk. I'm trying to finish my crossword." Hawk turned to Whitmore and her team. All of them were still staring. "Do you know who this is?" he asked. They shook their heads. Hawk gestured to Kit, standing there in her bathrobe and slippers holding cold tea. "This is Master Gunnery Sergeant Catherine Brennan, United States Marine Corps, retired. Call sign Hawkeye." He paused, letting that sink in. In 1972, she became the first woman ever admitted to the Marine Corps Aerial Target Marksmanship Program. She holds the record for the highest score ever recorded in the Inter-Service Skeet Shooting Championship. She shot 400 consecutive targets without a single miss, in a hurricane. Hawk looked at the drone wreckage. She spent 40 years teaching men and women how to hit fast-moving targets from moving platforms. You were all trying to use a calculator to hit a hummingbird. Kit here just used her eyes. Whitmore stared at Kit with something approaching awe. Master Guns, I apologize. That shot was—" She couldn't find the words. Kit waved a hand. "The lead isn't a calculation, Captain. It's a feeling. You feel the speed of the bird, you feel the speed of the bullet, and you let them meet." She turned toward her door. "Now, if you'll excuse me, my tea is cold, and I believe I've solved 7 down." She walked inside. The screen door closed behind her with a quiet click. Hawk watched her go, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to the assembled troops. "Pack it up. Take that drone wreckage to the lab. Maybe you can analyze the bullet hole and learn something about precision." He paused. "And Captain Whitmore, I suggest you ask Master Guns Brennan very nicely if she'd be willing to give you some pointers. Because that woman has forgotten more about shooting than all of you will ever learn." Inside the house, Kit set the Winchester back on its hooks above the fireplace. Her hands were shaking again now that the adrenaline was fading. She looked at Thomas's photograph. "I know," she said to the picture. "I said I was done." The photo didn't answer. She sat down in her chair and picked up the crossword puzzle. Her tea was cold. The pen shook in her hand. Outside, she could hear vehicles starting up, people talking in low voices, equipment being packed. For the first time in 7 years, people knew she existed. She wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. The knock came an hour later. Kit had changed into proper clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt. She'd made fresh tea. When she opened the door, Captain Whitmore stood there, still in tactical gear, but her face had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced with something that looked like genuine respect. "Master Guns Brennan," Whitmore said. "Do you have a few minutes?" Kit stepped aside. "Come in." They sat at the small kitchen table. Kit poured 2 cups of tea. Whitmore looked around the house. Neat, minimal. The walls covered in photographs and framed certificates Kit barely looked at anymore. On one wall, a shadow box. Inside, medals, ribbons, commendations. More than Whitmore had ever seen in one collection. "I need to ask," Whitmore said. "That manual, Archive Manual 7 Alpha, the one we use for training fast-moving aerial targets. Did you really write it?" Kit nodded. 1983. Updated it in 91 after Desert Storm. They revised it again in 2005, but the core principles stayed the same. Whitmore's eyes widened. "I've read that manual 50 times. I teach from it." She paused, the realization hitting her. "Every technique in there, every principle. You created them." "Not created," Kit corrected. "Learned them. Then wrote them down so others wouldn't have to learn the hard way." "But how did you—" Whitmore stopped herself. "I'm sorry, that's not why I'm here. Master Guns, I came to ask if you'd be willing to teach us. Me and Sergeant Webb. Officially. We need to understand what you know." Kit studied the young captain. Saw the genuine hunger to learn. Saw herself at 25 standing in front of instructors who didn't think she belonged. "Teaching isn't just showing someone how to shoot," Kit said. "It's understanding why. The principles underneath the technique. And those principles come with a bond. Stories that aren't easy to tell. Memories that don't fade." "I understand." "No," Kit said gently. "You don't. Not yet. But if you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach." Whitmore straightened. "We'll be here tomorrow morning, 0600. Whatever you need us to do." "Comfortable shoes," Kit said. "We're going to walk before we shoot." After Whitmore left, Kit stood at the window watching the sunset over Fort Harrison. The 2 remaining drones had been forced down by electronic jamming. The street was clear again. Normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. For 7 years, she'd been invisible. For 7 years, she'd believed that nobody needed what she knew. That her time had passed. That she was just an old woman waiting to die. One shot had changed everything. Kit turned and looked at the Winchester on the wall. The rifle gleamed in the fading light. She walked over and ran her hand along the stock. Found the familiar grain of the wood. The perfect balance. "Okay, Tom," she whispered. "I'll try. I'll teach them. Like you wanted." The photograph smiled back at her. Forever. The next morning, Kit woke at 0500 like she had for 57 years. She made tea. Earl Grey. Always Earl Grey. But this morning felt different. This morning, she had a purpose beyond crossword puzzles and memories. She took the Winchester down from the wall, cleaned it properly for the first time in 14 years, oiled the action, polished the stock. The ritual was meditative, calming. She'd done this thousands of times. Her hands remembered even when her mind tried to forget. The knock came at 0600, precise, military. Captain Whitmore stood on the porch with Sergeant Webb, both in PT gear, both looking like they'd already run 5 miles. Webb held 2 cups of coffee from the base commissary. "Master Guns," Whitmore said, "we're ready." Kit looked at them, young, eager, confident in the way people are when they haven't been broken yet. She saw herself. She saw Thomas. She saw every Marine she'd ever trained. "Come in," she said. They sat at her kitchen table. Kit didn't touch the coffee. She folded her hands and looked at them both. "Before I teach you anything," she said, "you need to understand what it costs to be a real marksman. Not someone who can hit paper at a range. Someone who can make the shot when it matters. When lives depend on it." Webb glanced at Whitmore. "We're listening, Master Guns." Kit stood and walked to the window. The Texas sun was breaking the horizon. "I'm going to tell you 6 stories," she said. 6 moments from my career. Each one taught me something. Each one cost me something. By the end, you'll understand what you're asking to learn. She turned to face them. The first story is about being the first, about proving you belong when everyone else thinks you don't. Whitmore leaned forward. 1972, Kit began. I was 25 years old. The memory came sharp and clear. Quantico, Virginia. August heat thick enough to chew. The Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center stretched in all directions. The aerial target marksmanship program had never accepted a female candidate. Women had only been allowed in non-combat roles the year before. Kit arrived with 47 men. She was the only woman. The first instructor she met was Gunnery Sergeant Frank Morrison, 52 years old, Korea veteran, face like weathered leather. He looked at her enlistment papers, looked at her, then looked back like he'd misread them. You, Catherine Brennan? Yes, Gunnery Sergeant. They send you here by mistake. No, Gunnery Sergeant. He grunted. We'll see. The program was brutal. Learn to hit fast-moving targets from unstable platforms. Clay pigeons launched from machines. Shooting from moving vehicles. Shooting at moving vehicles. Every possible combination of movement and chaos. The washout rate was 60%. On the first day, Morrison put her in the back of a Jeep with 47 men watching. Drove 30 miles per hour down a dirt road. Every 10 seconds, a clay pigeon launched. Orange disc against blue sky. Kit had a Remington 870 shotgun. 5 rounds, 5 targets. She missed the first 3. The Jeep stopped. Morrison walked back. Women's hands shake too much. Precision shooting requires steadiness. You can't help your biology. Not cruel, just stating what he thought was fact. Want to try again, he asked. Yes, Gunnery Sergeant. They ran the course 6 times. Kit hit 2 targets out of 30 attempts. She could hear the men laughing. Not all of them, but enough. That night alone in her barracks, Kit cried. Then she stopped crying and started thinking. Morrison was wrong about women's hands, but he was right that she was shaking. The question was, why? Fear of failing, fear of proving them right. The fear made her tense. Tension made her shake. She needed to stop being afraid. For the next month, Kit practiced differently. While the men focused on shooting technique, she focused on breathing, on staying calm in chaos. 4 counts in, hold for 7, 8 counts out, over and over until the fear disappeared. The final test came in October. All 48 candidates, the course shoot from a moving Jeep at Clay Pigeons, 5 shots, 50 yards, 40 miles per hour. No second chances. The men went first. Most hit 3 out of 5. The best hit 4. Kit climbed into the Jeep, every eye on her. 47 men, a dozen instructors, Morrison with his arms crossed. The engine started. She felt the vibration, loaded the shotgun, 5 shells, closed her eyes for 3 seconds. Breathed. The Jeep accelerated. First pigeon launched. Kit swung through it, not chasing, leading, feeling where it would be. Crack. The pigeon shattered. Second target. She didn't think, just felt. Crack. Another hit. Third, fourth, fifth, 5 shots, 5 hits, 5 perfect clouds of orange dust. The Jeep stopped. Morrison walked over, his face unchanged. He looked at the scorecard, looked at Kit. Outstanding Marine. Kit scored 98 out of 100 on the final qualification, highest in the program's 30-year history. 47 men had started with her. 22 graduated. Kit Brennan graduated first in her class. In the kitchen, present-day Whitmore's eyes were bright. That's how you learn, she said quietly. Not from technology, from controlling yourself first. Exactly, Kit said. Which brings me to the second story, about the piece of using what you've learned, about taking a life. Her voice got quieter. 1991. Iraq. I was 44 years old. Desert Storm had been called a clean war. Surgical strikes. The ground war lasted 100 hours. Politicians called it a triumph. Kit had been there for 73 days. She was an instructor, then attached to a forward operating base outside Kuwait City, training Marines in aerial target acquisition. It was supposed to be rear echelon work. Safe. Nothing in war is safe. February 18th, 0900 local time. Kit was running a training exercise with 23 Marines. Young kids, fresh from School of Infantry. They'd set up on a ridge practicing with clay pigeons. The heat was brutal, 115 degrees. The radio crackled. Inbound aircraft, unknown designation, 2 clicks north. Kit grabbed binoculars, scanned, Soviet-made Mi-24 Hind helicopter, flying low, fast, heading directly toward them. Air defense, someone shouted. The Stinger team scrambled. 2 Marines with a shoulder-fired anti-aircraft system, state-of-the-art, infrared guidance. The Marine aimed, locked, nothing. Systems not acquiring, the targeting computer wouldn't lock bomb. The Hind was a kilometer out. Kit could see the gun turret rotating. Try manual override. It's not responding, the whole system's dead. Heat damage. 3 months of desert sun and sand had cooked the electronics. The most advanced weapon had been defeated by weather. The Hind opened fire. 30-millimeter rounds tore into the sand 50 yards short, walking closer, circling for another pass. In 15 seconds, it would kill 23 Marines. Kit's M40 sniper rifle was propped against a rock. 7.62 NATO. Loophole scope. She grabbed it. Master Guns, what are you doing? Corporal Hayes, 19, from Ohio. Kit dropped prone, shouldered the rifle. Found the Hind in her scope. 400 yards. Moving target. Armored glass. Wind gusting. Heat distortion, making the air wobble. The ballistic computer could compensate for distance and wind, but it couldn't tell her where to aim on an armored helicopter. The canopy glass was rated to stop small arms fire. She needed perfection. Kit steadied her breathing. 4, 7, 8. The Hind banked lining up. She could see the pilot's helmet now. The oxygen mask, sunlight reflecting off his visor. She found the intersection point, where the side window met the canopy frame. A gap in the armor, 4 inches wide. The helicopter doing 80 knots. The window would pass through her crosshairs for less than a second. Kit stopped thinking. She felt the wind, felt the heat, felt the Hind's momentum, felt the bullet's arc. Her finger pressed the trigger. The rifle bucked. 400 yards away, the cockpit glass spiderwebbed. The helicopter lurched. Its tail rotor dipped. Then it rolled. The Hind hit the desert at 90 degrees, rotors disintegrating, fuel tanks rupturing. The explosion was orange and black against pale blue sky. Silence. 23 Marines stared at Kit. She stared at the burning wreckage, Hayes shaking Master Guns. You saved us. Kit lowered the rifle. Her hands were steady. Her heart was hammering. Get on the radio. Report enemy aircraft destroyed. Her voice didn't shake. It was only later, alone in her tent, that she allowed herself to feel it. She'd killed a man. Not in the abstract. She had aimed at a specific human being and ended his life. She'd seen his helmet, his mask. She'd calculated the exact point where her bullet would intersect his body, and she'd pulled the trigger. In the kitchen, Kit's voice was barely a whisper. I saved 23 lives that day. The Corps gave me a Bronze Star. The Marines called me a hero. She looked at Whitmore and Webb, but I still see his face every single night. Every time I close my eyes. The pilot's helmet, the way the glass broke, the smoke. She sat back down. That's the kind. You want to be a marksman, a real one, you need to understand that every shot you take in combat is a choice you'll carry forever. The technology doesn't make it easier. The computer doesn't pull the trigger. You do, and you live with it. Webb's face had gone pale. Do you regret it? Whitmore asked. Kit thought about that. 35 years of thinking. No, I'd make the same choice. But that doesn't mean it doesn't. And anyone who tells you different is lying or hasn't done it. The room was quiet for a long time. How do you deal with it? Webb asked. You don't. You just keep living. You remember the shot saved lives. You honor that. And you teach others so maybe they won't have to make the same choice. Whitmore nodded slowly. Thank you for telling us. Kit poured more tea. There's more. Story 3 is about loss, about what happens when the person who keeps you grounded is gone. She took a breath. 2019, 7 years ago, I was 72. Thomas was dying. The hospice bed had been set up in their living room, right where Kit's reading chair usually sat. The doctor said maybe 2 weeks. The cancer had spread from his lungs to his liver to his bones. Agent Orange from a war 50 years past still killing. Kit sat beside him every day, held his hand, read to him, watched him sleep. On the last day, Thomas was lucid for maybe an hour. Kit, he said, voice paper thin, promise me something. Anything. Don't disappear. When I'm gone, don't become invisible. I won't. You will. That smile that had made her fall in love in 1973. You'll think nobody needs you anymore. But you're not just an old woman. You're Catherine Brennan, Master Guns, the best instructor the Corps ever had. Tom, promise me you'll keep teaching, keep shooting, keep being who you are. Kit's throat closed. I promise, she whispered. Thomas died 3 hours later. The funeral was full military honors. 21 gun salute. Folded flag, taps. 200 Marines showed up. After everyone left, Kit went home to an empty house. She lasted 6 months. 6 months of waking alone, making tea for one, eating in silence, watching the Winchester gather dust. By October, she sat in her living room with the Winchester across her lap and a single .22 round in her hand. It would be easy. She wasn't afraid of dying. What she was afraid of was the endless gray sameness of being alive but not living, of existing but not mattering. Being forgotten is worse than being dead. Kit loaded the round, put the barrel under her chin. Her finger found the trigger. All she had to do was squeeze. The door crashed open. Hawk Reeves, 87 then. He'd used his emergency key. He crossed the room and ripped the Winchester from her hands. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Kit stared at him. No words. Hawk unloaded the rifle, set it aside, knelt in front of her. "Tom gave you that rifle to live, not to die. You hear me, Kit? To live. I can't. Nobody needs me anymore. I'm invisible." "That's not true." "It is. I'm 72. I'm a widow. I'm nobody." Hawk grabbed her shoulders. "You are Catherine Brennan, Master Gunnery Sergeant. You've trained 437 Marines. 41 became instructors themselves. You wrote the manual every aerial marksman still uses. You set records unbroken for 50 years. Records nobody remembers. I remember. Tom remembered. Every Marine you taught remembers. You're not invisible, Kit. You're just not looking." Kit broke. She sobbed. Great heaving cries from somewhere deep and buried. Hawk held her. When she finally stopped, Hawk stood. "You're coming with me. My house until you remember who you are." Kit lived with Hawk for 2 months. He made her get up, made her eat, made her talk. Slowly he reminded her of who she'd been, who she still was. But she didn't touch the Winchester. Not for 7 more years. In the kitchen present day, Kit wiped her eyes. Whitmore reached across the table, touched Kit's hand gently. "You're not invisible anymore," she said. "No," Kit agreed, "not anymore." Over the next week, Kit taught Whitmore and Webb the fundamentals. Not shooting, fundamentals. They spent the first day on breathing, not a single round fired. Just breathing techniques. 4-7-8, box breathing, combat breathing, ways to slow heart rate, ways to calm panic. Whitmore looked frustrated. "Master Guns, we know how to breathe. Do you stand up, run in place, fast, 30 seconds. Whitmore ran. When Kit said stop, she was breathing hard. "Could you make a precision shot right now?" "Yes." "Prove it." Kit handed her a laser pointer, pointed to a small dot on the wall. "Hit center." Whitmore aimed. The laser wobbled, danced, never settled. "I can't." "Now breathe. 4 in, hold 7, 8 out." Whitmore breathed. Once, twice, 3 times. The laser steadied, settled on center. That's the first lesson. Control your body, control your breath, then you control your shot. The second day, Kit taught observation, reading wind, measuring distance by feel, seeing details computers measured, but humans could sense. "Tell me what the wind is doing," she said on the range. Webb checked his meter. 7 miles per hour, southwest. "Wrong." "Bashara." "The meter tells you where you are. I asked where your bullet will be. Look at the grass, the dust, the heat shimmer. Wind isn't constant. It changes every 10 yards. Trust only the meter, you'll miss." Webb looked with new eyes, watched grass bend, dust swirl, flags flutter. "It's stronger downrange, maybe 9. Better." On the third day, Kit brought them to an old skeet range. Weeds through cracked concrete. The clay thrower rusted but functional. "Load 1 round." They loaded. "When the target launches, you have 3 seconds. Don't think. Don't calculate. Feel where it's going. Lead it. Shoot." Webb went first. The pigeon launched. He tracked it. "Squeezed, miss." "You chased it. Try again." 12 attempts, 12 misses. Whitmore tried. Same result. They were good shots, expert marksmen, combat veterans, but they'd been trained on stationary targets, not fast-moving objects in 3 dimensions. Kit took the shotgun. "Watch." She shouldered it, called for the target. The pigeon launched. Kit didn't chase. Her barrel swung through it faster than the target. She fired ahead. The pigeon exploded. Again. 10 shots. 10 hits. Webb stared. "How?" "I'm not aiming where it is. I'm shooting where it will be. You have to see the future. Not with eyes. With your mind." 6 hours of practice. Hundreds of rounds. Slowly they understood. By day's end, Webb hit 3 of 10. Whitmore hit 4. Progress. On the 7th day, a man visited. Colonel Everett Cole, 56. Combat decorations from Iraq and Afghanistan. Commanding officer of 3rd Marine Division. Kit hadn't seen him in 21 years. He walked onto the range in dress blues, stopped 10 feet from Kit, came to attention. Master Guns. Kit looked at him. She could still see the 22-year-old with the injured eye. The one everyone said would wash out. The one she'd taught to shoot it with iron sights when doctors said his vision was too damaged. Everett. Permission to speak freely. Master Guns. Granted. Cole relaxed slightly. When I heard you were teaching again, I had to see for myself. You saved my career, Master Guns. Everything I've accomplished, I owe it to you. Kit felt warmth in her chest. You did the work, Everett. I just showed you how. You did more. Cole turned to Whitmore and Webb. Captain, Sergeant, you're learning from the best instructor the Corps has ever produced. Listen to everything she says. I'm proof her methods work. He turned back to Kit. I need to get back to Pendleton. But I wanted you to know you're not forgotten, Master Guns. Not by me, not by any of us. After he left, Whitmore looked at Kit with new respect. How many students have you trained? 437. And instructors? 41. Webb's eyes widened. 41 instructors who train thousands more. You're not just a marksman, Master Guns. You're a legacy. That evening, Kit invited Whitmore to her house for tea. They sat on the porch, the sun setting, the air cooling. Can I ask you something personal? Whitmore said. Ask. That Winchester, Model 52 from 1947. It's worth maybe $3,000 to a collector. But you could have any rifle. Modern equipment, computers, smart scopes. Why that one? Kit was quiet. She'd been waiting for this question. In 1975, I married Thomas Brennan, Force Recon, one of the best Marines I ever knew. She took a sip of tea. For our first anniversary, Tom gave me that Winchester. He'd saved 6 months. $300 was a lot for a Lance Corporal. He could have bought a car. Instead, he bought me that rifle. Whitmore listened. He had the stock customized, fitted to my measurements, trigger adjusted to my pull weight. He told the gunsmith, make this perfect for my wife, and they did. That rifle fits me better than any weapon I've ever held, because it was made for me. Kit stood. Come inside, I want to show you something. They went to the fireplace. Kit took down the Winchester, turned it over. Look here. She removed the butt plate, underneath carved into the wood where it would never be seen, for the only marksman who shoots with her heart. Tom Whitmore's breath caught. Her eyes got wet. He died in 2019, Kit said quietly. 7 years ago. Lung cancer. I was with him at the end. He could barely speak. But he looked at this rifle and said, promise me you'll keep shooting. Don't let this gather dust. Kit's voice cracked. I promised. Then for 7 years I broke that promise. I couldn't look at this without thinking of him. What I'd lost. So I let it hang on the wall. A memorial to a dead man and a dead version of myself. Until the drones, Whitmore said. Until the drones. Kit nodded. I realized Tom didn't give me this so I could hang it on a wall. He gave it to me so I could live, so I could keep being who I am. Catherine Brennan, instructor, marksman, Marine. She looked at Whitmore. This rifle is my legacy. Every student I taught, every principle I demonstrated, every life I saved, every record I set, it's all here in this wood and steel. Tom understood that better than I did. Whitmore wiped her eyes. When you're gone, everything you know goes with you, unless you teach it. That's why I'm here. Not just to shoot better, to learn how to teach. So when you're not here anymore, someone carries forward what you know. Kit felt the weight of those words. How many years left? Gave 10. How much knowledge would die with her? Then that's what I'll teach you, Kit said. Not just shooting, teaching. How to pass on knowledge. How to train the next generation. How to be a legacy instead of just a memory. The next day, Kit taught differently. Not shooting technique, teaching technique. How to read a student's body language. When to push. When to encourage. How to break complex skills into simple steps. How to inspire without intimidating. How to correct without crushing. Everything she'd learned in 4 decades. The rifle is metal and wood, Kit said. The shot is physics. But the teaching, that's art. That's the hardest skill and the most important. On the 10th day, Whitmore arrived alone at dawn. I need to ask about your 5th story, she said. The one you haven't told yet, about the impossible shot. Kit nodded. She'd been saving this one. 2010. I was 63. Marine Corps Base Quantico. October 15th. The annual Instructor Excellence Competition. Every year, the Corps brought together its best marksmanship instructors for a week of competitions. The winners got a small trophy most forgot by next year. But in 2010, something changed. They introduced a drone target, a simple commercial quadcopter with a bright orange flag. The course hit the drone in flight, 200 yards, 5 shots. Fastest time won, 12 instructors competing. Kit was oldest by 15 years, everyone else 30s and 40s. Combat veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. The best. They all had the newest equipment, advanced rifles, smart scopes, ballistic computers calculating wind distance, temperature, barometric pressure, Coriolis effect, $3,000 of electronics per rifle. Kit had the Winchester. The other instructors laughed. Gunnery Sergeant Dalton Price, 36, Afghanistan veteran, 140 confirmed kills. He looked at Kit's rifle. Master Guns, you serious? That thing doesn't even have a scope. Don't need one. It's a 22. You're shooting at a drone 200 yards out. I'm aware, Price shook his head. Your funeral. The first 11 went before Kit. All experts, all with superior technology. Price went first, took position, rifle on bipod, waited for the drone to launch. It took off fast, climbed to 200 yards, began erratic movement. Left, right, up, down. Unpredictable. Price tracked it. The computer tried to lock, tried to calculate lead. The drone moved too fast, changed direction too quickly. 5 shots, 4 misses. 1 hit on the 5th only because the drone briefly hovered. Time 3 minutes 40 seconds. The other 10 fared no better. The best time was 2 minutes 18 seconds. The problem was identical for all of them. Computers couldn't predict chaos. Drones didn't fly straight lines. By the time the scope locked, the drone had moved. Technology was failing. Then Kit's turn. She stepped to the line. No bipod, no rest, no computer. Just her, the Winchester, and 63 years of experience. The range officer looked skeptical. Master Gunnery Sergeant Brennan, you're cleared when ready. Kit shouldered the rifle, felt the familiar weight. The stock settled against her cheek like an old friend. The drone launched, climbed fast to 200 yards, began its erratic dance. Wind gusting 25 from the southwest, heat waves rising, terrible conditions. Kit closed her eyes for 3 seconds, breathed. When she opened them, the world narrowed to 3 things: her, the rifle, and the space the drone would occupy in 1.3 seconds. She didn't track the drone. She swung the barrel ahead, moving smoothly, not chasing, intercepting. She saw the future position, saw where wind would push the bullet, where gravity would pull it, the exact point where all variables converged. She stopped thinking. She just knew. Her finger pressed. Crack. The sound was tiny. Just a pop. The drone kept flying for half a second and Kit thought she'd missed. Then one rotor shattered. The drone spun wildly, dropped like a rock, hit sand with a crunch. Time 8.4 seconds. 1 shot. Silence. 11 instructors stared. The range officer checked his stopwatch 3 times. How the hell? Price started. Kit ejected the casing, caught it, pocketed it. You were aiming where the drone was. I aimed where it was going to be. But how did you calculate? I didn't calculate. I felt it. The Commandant of the Marine Corps was present, Lieutenant General Marcus Hammond, 58, career infantry. He'd watched every competitor. When Kit made her shot, he stood and walked onto the range. Everyone came to attention. Hammond ignored protocol, walked straight to Kit. Master Guns, I've been in the Corps 36 years. I've seen incredible shooting. But that, he gestured at the destroyed drone, that was the shot heard across the Corps. Kit stood at attention. How did you do it? Hammond asked. Honestly? Kit thought, sir, the other instructors have better equipment, better scopes, better computers, better everything. But they've learned to trust technology more than themselves. When technology fails, they have nothing to fall back on. She looked at the Winchester. I learned to shoot before computers existed, before ballistic calculators, before smart scopes. I learned to read wind by watching grass, to measure distance by feeling, to predict movement by understanding physics with my body, not with a machine. The drone doesn't care about my technology. It only cares about physics, and I understand physics. Hammond nodded slowly. The Corps is moving toward more technology. You think that's a mistake? No, sir. Technology is a tool, a good tool, but if we forget fundamentals underneath technology, We'll lose something important. We'll create marksmen who can only shoot when batteries work. Hammond looked at the other instructors. Back at Kit. How long until you retire? 2 years, sir. When you do, I want you to write a new manual, not an update. Something entirely new, teaching fundamentals without assuming any technology exists. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Hammond shook her hand. The Corps needs people like you. People who remember we're Marines, first technology users second. In Kit's kitchen present day, Whitmore was silent. That manual you wrote, she said finally. That's Archive Manual 7 Alpha, the one I teach from. Yes. You wrote it in retirement. Took me a year, 300 pages. Every technique, every principle, every lesson from 40 years. Whitmore shook her head slowly. You're not just a good shot master guns. You're living history, a library that can't be digitized. Kit smiled. That's why I'm teaching you, so the library doesn't burn when I'm gone. They sat in comfortable silence. There's one more story, Kit said. The sixth one, about why I keep this rifle. The real reason. She stood and got the Winchester, handed it to Whitmore. Feel it, the weight, the balance. Whitmore held it carefully. It's perfectly balanced. Tom had it custom fitted for me. My measurements, my pull weight, my eye relief. This rifle knows me, and I know it. We've been together 51 years. Kit took it back, ran her hand along the stock. After Tom died, I couldn't touch this. It hurt too much. Every time I looked at it, I saw him, heard his voice, felt his loss. She looked at the inscription hidden under the butt plate. But that was the wrong way to think about it. This rifle isn't a memorial to what I lost. It's a reminder of what I still have. Every student I taught, every life I saved, every record I set, every principle I passed on. That's all still here, still alive, as long as I keep teaching. Kit's voice grew stronger. This rifle is my purpose, my connection to who I am, who I've always been. Tom understood that. He gave me this so I'd never forget, so I'd always have something to anchor me when everything else fell apart. She looked at Whitmore. Skills fade, equipment breaks, bodies fail. But if you teach principles right, if you pass them on to people who care, they outlive you forever. That's what this rifle represents. Not just shooting. Legacy. Whitmore's eyes were bright. I understand now. It's not about the rifle. It's about what it means. Exactly. Outside, the sun was setting. Kit and Whitmore sat on the porch watching the sky turn orange and gold. Tomorrow, Kit said, we start the real work. I'm going to teach you how to teach. So when I'm gone, you can do what I did. Pass it forward. Whitmore nodded. I'm ready, Master Guns. Kit smiled. For the first time in 7 years, she felt like she had a future, not just a past. 2 weeks into training, something changed. Kit woke at 0500 to find 3 black SUVs in her driveway. Hawk Reeves stood on her lawn with a dozen Marines in dress blues, and in the center, held by 2 MPs, was a man in handcuffs. Kit walked down her porch steps. Hawk, what's going on? Hawk's face was grim. We caught the drone operator. Thought you should know who it was. Kit looked at the man. 60 years old, gray hair, familiar, but she couldn't place him. Then she could. David Keller. The man met her eyes. Hello, Master Guns. Kit's mind reeled. David Keller, one of her students from 1987. Brilliant, talented, one of the best natural shots she'd ever taught. He'd gone into intelligence, special operations. Then in 1991, his entire team was killed in Iraq. He'd been listed as KYA. You're supposed to be dead, Kit said. I was, Keller said, for 35 years. Then I came back to test something. Test what? Whether the Corps had forgotten what you taught us, whether technology made us weak, whether we still remembered fundamentals. Hawk interrupted. He wasn't working for an enemy. Freelance security testing, hired by the Pentagon to probe our defenses. The drones were part of a black program, testing whether our snipers could adapt to unconventional threats. Kit looked at Orlin. You could have just asked. Would you have said yes? No. Keller smiled sadly. You trained me to think like an enemy, Master Guns, to exploit weaknesses, to move unpredictably. I used everything you taught me. I wanted to see if anyone remembered those lessons. The young shooters didn't. No, but you did. Keller looked at her with something like pride. 8.4 seconds, 2010. I was there, Master Guns. I saw that shot. It's why I programmed the drones to move that way, to see if anyone else could do what you did. Kit felt anger rising. You put people at risk. You terrorize families. I put no one at risk. Keller's voice was firm. The drones had no weapons, no explosives. If your shooters had hit them, they'd have found cameras and computers. It was a test, nothing more. Hawk stepped forward. He's telling the truth, Kit. Pentagon confirms it. Classified security assessment. Keller went too far with methodology, but his mission was legitimate. Kit looked at the man she'd trained 39 years ago. You scared people, David. Children. I know, I'm sorry, but I needed to know if the Corps still valued what you taught, if we'd lost our way. And we almost have. Those shooters missed 18 shots with the most advanced equipment in the world. You hit your target in one with a rifle from 1947. That tells me everything. The MPS led Keller away. He'd face disciplinary action. Probably lose his clearance, but no criminal charges. After they left, Kit sat on her porch with Hawk. He was right, Hawk said. We have lost our way. We've spent so much on technology we've forgotten basics. When technology fails, we're helpless. Not helpless, just unprepared. Can you fix that? Kit thought about Whitmore and Webb, about the 41 instructors, the 437 students, the manual. I can try. That afternoon, Whitmore came to Kit's house looking worried. Master Gunn said, I just got word. The Pentagon wants to run another test, this time officially. They want to see if what you're teaching actually works. When blow? 3 days. They're sending the same 3 drones, full tactical protocol. If we can neutralize them using fundamentals instead of technology, they'll approve a Corps-wide training program based on your methods. Kit felt her stomach tighten. And if we fail, they'll say technology is the only answer. Your program gets shelved. Kit looked at the Winchester on the wall. 3 days. Could she teach Whitmore and Webb enough in 3 days to make the difference? We'll do it, Kit said, but not the way they expect. For the next 3 days, Kit drilled Whitmore and Webb relentlessly. Not on shooting, on observation, on breathing, on feeling instead of calculating, on trusting instincts over computers. She made them shoot skeet for 6 hours straight. No scopes, just iron sights and intuition. By the end of day 2, Whitmore was hitting 7 out of 10. Webb was hitting 8. Progress. On the morning of day 3, Kit took them to the range one last time. Today isn't about proving you can shoot, she said. It's about proving you understand why. The Pentagon will send drones. You'll be tempted to use your advanced rifles. Your computers don't. She handed them each a simple hunting rifle. Remington 700, iron sights, no electronics. Use these. Trust what I taught you. Trust yourselves. Whitmore looked at the rifle. Master Guns, with respect, we've only been training at 2 weeks. Against moving targets, like those drones. You're not shooting the drones, Kit interrupted. You're shooting where the drones will be. There's a difference, and you're ready. That afternoon, the drones returned, 3 of them, identical to before. The Pentagon had either repaired the damaged one or sent a replacement. They launched from a mobile platform 200 yards from the housing complex. Immediately, they began their evasive pattern. Zigging, zagging, accelerating, stopping. Pure chaos. The base's tactical team was ready. 3 shooters with XM2010s, full computer assistance. They took position. Whitmore and Webb stood 50 yards away with their simple Remington 700s. The crowd that had gathered, maybe 100 Marines, including several generals, looked skeptical. An old woman and 2 students with hunting rifles against the Corps' elite snipers with advanced technology. It seemed like a joke. Kit stood on her porch, watching, the Winchester in her hands. Just in case, the tactical team fired first. 10 shots, 10 misses. Same problem as before. The computers couldn't predict chaos. Then Whitmore's turn. She shouldered the Remington, closed her eyes, breathed. 4, 7, 8, opened her eyes. The first drone was moving left to right at 70 miles per hour. Whitmore didn't track it. She swung ahead, let it, felt where it would be, squeezed, crack. The drone kept flying for half a second, then a rotor arm exploded. The drone spiraled down. The crowd gasped. Webb took aim at the second drone. It was moving erratically. Up, down, side to side. Impossible pattern. Webb breathed, calmed himself, watched, waited for the pattern to repeat, found the rhythm, swung through, fired. Another rotor destroyed, another drone falling. 2 down, 1 left. The third drone did something different. It accelerated directly toward Kit's porch. Fast, 80 miles per hour, weaving in 3 dimensions. Whitmore lined up, missed. Webb tried, missed. The drone was closing, 50 yards, 40. Kit saw movement on a rooftop 300 yards away. David Keller. He'd escaped custody. He was standing there with a remote control in his hands, operating the final drone manually, giving it unpredictable commands no computer could anticipate. The drone was 10 yards from Kit's porch when she understood. This wasn't a test of shooting, it was a test of choice. She could shoot the drone, save herself, prove she still had the skill, or she could do something harder. Kit raised the Winchester, but she didn't aim at the drone. She aimed at the remote control in Keller's hand. 300 yards, moving target, wind gusting, a 4-inch target on a human being. The hardest shot she'd ever attempted. Kit closed her eyes, breathed, saw Thomas's face, heard his voice. Shoot with your heart, Kit. She opened her eyes, the world narrowed. Kit, the rifle. The point in space where the bullet would meet the remote control. She felt the wind, felt the distance, felt Keller's hand position, felt the bullet's arc. She stopped thinking. She was the rifle. The rifle was her. 51 years of partnership compressed into this single moment. Her finger pressed the trigger. Crack. 300 yards away, the remote control exploded in Keller's hand. Plastic fragments, circuit boards, shattered. The drone suddenly, without input, hovered for a moment. Then its failsafe activated. It descended slowly, landed on the grass, intact. Silence descended over Fort Harrison. Every person in that crowd stood frozen, staring at Kit, staring at the rooftop where Keller was clutching his hand in shock, staring at the remote control destroyed with surgical precision. Lieutenant General Hammond, the same general from 2010, stepped forward. He'd been in the crowd observing. He walked to Kit's porch. "Master Guns," he said slowly, "did you just shoot the controller out of his hand at 300 yards? "Yes, sir." "Why not shoot the drone?" Kit lowered the Winchester. "Because the drone was never the real threat, sir. The person controlling it was. Shooting the drone would have proven I can hit a moving target. Shooting the controller proved I can make the hard choice. The principled choice. The choice that solves the actual problem." Hammond stared at her. Then he started laughing. Deep belly laughs. "40 years I've known you, Kit. You still find ways to teach lessons I did not know I needed to learn." He turned to the crowd. "What we just witnessed is exactly why Master Gunnery Sergeant Brennan's program is essential. Not because she's a good shot, because she understands something we've forgotten. Shooting isn't about the equipment, it's about the shooter, the judgment, the principles, the fundamentals that don't change even when technology does." He looked at Kit. "Master Guns effective immediately. The Marine Corps is authorizing a pilot program. Fundamentals before technology. You'll have resources, personnel, whatever you need. Build this program. Teach these principles. Make sure we never forget what you know." Kit felt something break open in her chest. Not sadness, not fear, hope. "Yes, sir," she said. "I'll do my best." 6 months later, Kit stood in a classroom at Fort Harrison. The room was larger now, equipped, properly funded. On the walls hung photographs spanning 54 years. Kit at 25 graduating first in her class. Kit at 44 receiving her Bronze Star. Kit at 63 making the shot heard across the Corps. Kit at 79 teaching the next generation. Living history. The program had grown beyond what she'd imagined. Fundamentals before technology now had 22 students in the first class. Marines from every specialty. Some veteran instructors, some fresh from sniper school, all wanting to learn. Captain Whitmore stood at the front with Kit. She'd become the program's co-director, learning not just to shoot, but to teach, becoming the next link in the chain. Sergeant Webb sat in the front row. He'd become one of the program's fiercest advocates, already training the second wave of students. Colonel Everett Cole sat in the back. He'd made the trip from Pendleton just to see what Kit had built. And in the very back, hands still bandaged, sat David Keller. His security clearance was gone, his career over. But Hammond had given him a choice: prison or redemption. Help Kit build this program, teach what he knew about unconventional tactics, prove that failure could become purpose. Keller had chosen redemption. Kit walked to the front of the room. 22 faces looked at her expectantly. "Before we begin," she said, "I want you to understand something. This program isn't about making you better shots. You're already good shots." She paused. "This program is about making you independent, self-reliant, capable of making the shot even when every piece of technology fails, even when you have nothing but your eyes, your hands, and your training. Ah, she gestured to the Winchester hanging on the wall in a place of honor beside Thomas's photograph. This rifle is 79 years old, my age exactly. It has no computer, no scope, no battery, just metal and wood and the accumulated knowledge of everyone who's ever held it. My husband gave it to me 51 years ago. I've used it to set records, to save lives, to teach thousands of Marines. Kit's voice grew stronger. Someday I won't be here. Someday this rifle will hang on a different wall. But the knowledge it represents doesn't have to die with me. If I teach you right, if you learn, if you pass it on to the next generation. She looked at each face. You're not here to learn shooting, you're here to learn teaching, because that's the real legacy, not the shot, the teaching. After class, Kit walked outside. The Texas sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. Hawk waited in the parking lot, leaning against his truck. How'd it go, he asked. Good, really good. Tom would be proud. Kit smiled. Yeah, he would. They stood in comfortable silence. You did it, Hawk said. You came back. You stopped being invisible. Kit looked back at the classroom. Through the window, she could see Whitmore talking with students, passing on knowledge. The chain continuing. I was never invisible, Kit said quietly. I just wasn't looking. I thought being old meant being forgotten, being useless. But that was wrong. Being old means you've lived long enough to learn things worth teaching, to be a bridge between generations. She touched the dog tags under her shirt. 4 sets, Marines who didn't make it home. This is for them too, for everyone who didn't get to teach the next generation. I'm doing it for all of us. A week later, the formal program launch ceremony. The parade ground at Fort Harrison was packed. 300 Marines in dress blues, generals, colonels. The commandant himself had flown in from Washington. Kit stood on the platform in her old dress blues. They still fit, barely. She'd had them cleaned and pressed for the first time in a decade. The commandant stepped to the podium. Today we're not launching a program, he said. We're honoring a legacy. Master Gunnery Sergeant Catherine Brennan has given the Marine Corps 54 years of service. As a student, as a marksman, as an instructor, as a writer. As a living embodiment of everything we aspire to be. He turned to Kit. Master Guns, would you please come forward? Kit walked to the podium. Her knees protested, but she walked straight, head high, Marine bearing. The commandant held a medal, the Legion of Merit, one of the highest non-combat decorations, for exceptional service to the United States Marine Corps, for training 437 Marines, for writing manuals still in use today, for setting records unbroken for decades, for proving that fundamentals matter more than technology, for teaching us that legacy is built not in moments of glory, but in years of patient instruction. He pinned the medal to her uniform, and for reminding us that no Marine is ever too old to serve, too invisible to matter, too forgotten to teach. The 300 Marines came to attention, saluted. Kit saluted back. Then the commandant did something unexpected. He stepped aside, gestured to a table that had been covered with a cloth. Master Guns, if you would. Kit pulled the cloth away. Underneath was a bronze plaque, engraved the Catherine Brennan Center for Marksmanship. Fundamentals established 2026, shoot with your heart. Kit's breath caught. Her eyes filled with tears. This building, the commandant said, will be the permanent home of your program. Every Marine who wants to learn fundamentals will come here. Every instructor will teach here. And every single one of them will know your name, your story, your legacy. He paused. You're not invisible, Kit. You never were. You were just waiting for us to deserve what you had to teach. The crowd erupted in applause. Kit stood there, 79 years old, tears running down her face, and felt something she hadn't felt in 7 years. Complete, whole, seen. That evening, Kit sat on her porch one last time with the Winchester across her lap. The ceremony was over. The crowd's gone, the sun setting over Fort Harrison in shades of orange and gold. Whitmore sat beside her, silent, respectful. How does it feel, Tom? Whitmore asked. Kit thought about the question. Like I kept my promise, she said finally, to Tom, to myself, to everyone I ever taught. I promised I wouldn't disappear, that I'd keep teaching, keep being who I am. She looked at the Winchester. This rifle has been with me 51 years. It's seen everything I've seen, learned everything I have learned, and now it gets to keep teaching even after I'm gone. What do you mean? Kit turned to Whitmore. I'm 80 in 3 months. I'm old Sloan, not dead but old. My hands shake, my knees hurt, my eyes aren't what they were. Someday soon I won't be able to do this anymore. She held out the Winchester. When that day comes, this rifle stays with the program. It becomes part of the teaching. Students hold it, feel it. Understand that fundamentals don't need batteries. And you'll tell them the stories, all six of them. You'll keep the legacy alive. Whitmore took the rifle carefully. I promise, Master Guns, I'll tell every story. I'll teach every principle. I'll make sure they remember. Kit smiled. I know you will. That's why I chose you. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Kit closed her eyes, breathed. 4 counts in, hold for 7, 8 counts out. When she opened her eyes, she saw the future. Classrooms full of students, Marines learning fundamentals, Whitmore teaching the next generation, Webb passing on what he'd learned, Cole sending his best instructors to train, Keller finding redemption through service, the legacy continuing. She saw herself at 80, at 85, at 90 if she was lucky. Still teaching, still shooting, still being Catherine Brennan, Master Gunnery Sergeant, instructor, marksman, Marine. Never invisible again, the Winchester gleamed in the fading light. 79 years old, same age as Kit, still perfect, still precise, still ready. Some things never fade, some legacies never die, some teachers never stop teaching, and some rifles, if you treat them right, if you maintain them with care, if you shoot with your heart instead of just your eyes, will outlive you and everyone you've ever known. Because they're not just rifles, they're promises. Kept. Kit picked up her tea. It was perfect temperature now. She took a sip and smiled. Somewhere in whatever place Marines go when they die, Thomas Brennan was smiling too. She'd kept her promise. She'd taught them. All of them. And they would teach the next generation. And on, forever. The chain unbroken, the legacy secure, the invisible woman finally seen and remembered. Always.